présenter au Parlement et corriger les erreurs dans ces programmes pour les Canadiens. Le Premier ministre...
The Prime Minister often stayed at home to support people from other countries. Why is the Prime Minister spending so much time following his personal ambitions and turning his back on Canadians while we're going through the worst crisis in our history? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Chair, the Conservatives are the only ones who don't understand that this is a global pandemic. And this isn't something we can solve alone. It's something we have to work on with the international community. So the efforts I've been making for several months now, and the conversations I've had with leaders, and through the investments I've made in safety, well, we're going to continue to work with the rest of the world to face these challenges and help Canadians to create a better world. Mr. Scheer.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister claims he's been making these phone calls to talk about a coordinated response to COVID-19. On June 11th, the Prime Minister had a call with the Sultan of Oman. So I'd like to ask the Prime Minister, will he today condemn Oman's repeated arrest of anti-government protesters?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we've continued to be engaged around the world on issues that matter to Canadians, whether it's defeating COVID-19, making investments, or working with partners around the world to advance common causes. We're going to continue to engage in the world because that's what Canadians expect.
Here.
But he won't condemn that human rights abuse. I'll give him another chance. On May 6th, the Prime Minister had a phone call with the Emir of Qatar. Will he condemn Qatar's use of slave labor to build a soccer stadium?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has long been engaged in the world, including with people who we don't always agree. But it is important to work together on issues where we do agree and make sure that we're continuing to speak loudly and strongly for human rights, which Canada always does.
So when it comes to personal vanity product, he won't condemn human rights abuses. He just calls them disagreements. Well, on June 11th, the Prime Minister spoke with the President of Rwanda. Will the Prime Minister condemn the murder, frequent arrest, torture, and imprisonment of opposition politicians and investigative journalists? Yes or no?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, over the past months and indeed years, Canada has re-engaged with Africa. We've worked with a number of strong African leaders on issues that matter to people, while at the same time highlighting how our support and our working together can improve the situation around human rights right across the continent. We will continue to work with leaders across Africa.
That was a yes or no question. The Prime Minister can't bring himself to criticize dictators and despots around the world who abuse human rights. And we know that he likes to fund UNRWA to curry favor with nations who are ideologically opposed to Israel's right to exist. Not only has UNRWA helped the terrorist organization Hamas and provided educational materials that attacks Jews, just last year its leaders were found to have been involved with, quote, sexual misconduct, nepotism, retaliation, discrimination, and other abuses of authority for personal gain to suppress legitimate dissent and to otherwise achieve their personal objective. Why is the Prime Minister funding UNRWA?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we made the decision to restore funding to UNRWA because we know that working towards peace and prosperity in the Middle East go hand in hand. We have brought in greater safeguards and greater accountability for UNRWA through our involvement in it. But we also know that creating better opportunities and better support for people in the region is part of the path towards peace.
Mr. Scheer.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's record on foreign affairs has been a complete disaster. He surrendered to Donald Trump, offering up concession after concession. He went to China to get a free trade deal, and all he came home with was a nickname from the Communist Party that is so offensive, the Speaker has ruled I can't repeat it in this chamber. His erratic behavior during the Trans-Pacific Partnership talks angered our allies in Australia and Japan. Of course, who can forget his disastrous trip to India? So, Mr. Speaker, which one of the Prime Minister's foreign policy blunders is he most embarrassed by?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of neglect and embarrassment on the world stage, Canada re-engaged 5 years ago. And in that time, we've become the only G7 country to sign a free trade deal with every other G7 country. We've led the way on multilateralism. We've secured our most important trade partnership at a time of protectionism, of challenges with the United States. We've moved forward on protecting millions of Canadian jobs. And we did that in a Team Canada approach where premiers across the country, including Conservative premiers, stepped up. It's only the Conservatives in Ottawa that continue to put politics.